Baby girl, you are so pretty, 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 pretty. Baby girl, you are so pretty, 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 pretty. Females made you just to trick me, trick me, trick me, trick me. Cause baby girl, you are so easy, baby. The only reason that I can do tonight is cause I know you were invited. The only reason that this dress is skin tight is cause I thought that you would like it. I'm only come for this.
This is Jessica Javens Talk, and today we're going to be talking about genetics, mystery, and an incredible journey. You cannot miss this. And I am so fascinated and emotional about this story, and I cannot wait for you to join us and get to know my amazing guest, Gayle Worath. Welcome to Jessica Javens Talk, Gayle. How are you today?
Okay. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you. I would love for you to just maybe start telling our guests today just a little bit about your mission now in your life. It's incredible.
Thank you.
Let's start with the top.
All right.
A little bit.
Okay. So how we all started, how I ended up here. So Christmas of 2021, as a stocking stuffer, my husband gave me an Ancestry DNA kit, and he got another one for himself. And I had asked him for it. I literally just wanted to see where my ancestors came from. That was it. So we both test, the results come back, and mine says I'm 100% Ashkenazi Jewish, which I knew. I knew that. Both my parents are Jewish. But a woman showed up on my page, and initially she showed up as a cousin. I don't have cousins. Both of my parents are only children. I have no aunts, no uncles, no first cousins. And I messaged this woman. It was interesting because there's that thumbnail picture of her. And it's tiny, but her face is turned, and I could see her hair is very much like my hair, which is somewhat distinctive. And her profile looked like mine. But she was much younger than me. And I messaged her on Ancestry. She didn't check her messages, and I forgot about it. And I found a larger picture of her on her LinkedIn because I had her name from Ancestry. I showed my mother the picture. I'm like, who is this? She shrugs her shoulders. She says she doesn't know. I forget about it because whatever. We laughed about it, actually. It was like a joke. We're like, oh, someone's, and it was always like a poorly kept secret that my father's father had affairs. We're like, oh, someone had an affair, someone had a baby, that's someone. Yeah. That's what we thought. Someone had an affair, and I moved on. Fine. That was 3.5 years before. So then January of this year, this very same woman reaches out to me on Facebook. She messages me. Now you have to understand that Ancestry is an algorithm. And as it gets more and more data, I didn't know this, that it kind of changes the relationship because it gets a clearer picture.
Yes, I'm on it too. I love that. You can always go in and see something new. Yes.
I hadn't been on it since I tested. I forgot about it. It was like a whatever. So this one reaches out to me on Facebook, and she says, hello. She says, I checked my aunt. Someone told her to check her Ancestry page. Someone had seen it and said to her, check your page. She goes, I checked my page. Me and another person, a man, showed up as half siblings. She said, my father was a doctor, and in the late 60s, early 70s, he was a sperm donor. She goes, and you look just like my aunt, and I think that we are related.
Wow. How did you feel? Just briefly, how did you feel right there?
You can't process it. At first, I'm showing my husband the message, and he's like, well, let's call her. I'm like, all right. So we exchanged numbers. I put her on speaker on my cell phone, and my husband and I are sitting at the kitchen island, and she's telling the same story. My father was a sperm donor, late 60s, early 70s. You look like my aunt. And okay, I'm a 53-year-old married mother of 2 teenagers. I'm a stay-at-home mom. I'm like, this is crazy. And my husband's the one who put it together. He looks at me, and my father's name was Marty. He goes, "You're not Marty's daughter." And like, do you ever hear something so shocking that your brain can't process it? I'm seeing his lips move. I'm hearing his voice, and I can't process what he's saying. So, we end the conversation, and I call my mother. I'm like, this woman's reaching out. My mother is like, I don't know what you're talking about. I never cheated on your father. This is okay. Now, I grew up in a house with two older sisters. Me and the oldest sister are biological sisters. The middle sister was adopted. My biological sister and I look nothing alike. I am 5'10". I'm now gray, but I was very blonde. Always big curly hair. She is 5 feet tall, pin straight, dark brown hair. We never even remotely resembled each other. Call my biological sister. I'm like, this woman's reaching out to me, claiming to be a sibling, telling me this crazy story. I send a mobile DNA unit to my sister's house. Another one comes to me. They test us both. And it turns out we are half siblings. We share a mother. We do not share a father. My mother used sperm donors to have both me and my sister and never told us.
And this is the first time that you guys have had even a clue about this.
Well, the interesting thing is, so I'm getting, my oldest sister looks like my mother. She looks like my mother's side of the family. Now, the woman who reached out to me on Ancestry sent me a picture of this man. Now, first of all, the crazy thing is he resembled the man who raised me. So my father,
Wow.
there is nothing that can prepare you for that. Nothing. I look like this man. I look just like this man. Just like him. There is no doubt that I am his child. No doubt.
Even imagine like you going back in your life and thinking about everything being raised by your dad, and it's like a huge roller coaster that I can't even imagine.
Yeah. And I'm 53. I'm not a child. So, and I talk about the fact, okay, so I'm backing up again. As when I get off the phone with this woman back in January, I talk to my husband. My husband and I are sitting there. I'm literally in shock. And I really do think I was in shock for months. And I'm like, I can't believe this. This is crazy. I said, but I've been getting the emails. And he looks at me like I have 3 heads. He goes, what emails? I'm like, the cousin emails. He goes, what are you talking about? We're arguing at the kitchen island. I said, sweetie, the emails that tell you about your new cousins. He goes, Gayle, I've been on Ancestry with you for 3.5 years. He goes, I've never gotten an email. So literally, to end the argument, he pulls up his Ancestry page, and he has 3 connections on his page. It's him, his father, and his sister. That's it. We pull up my Ancestry page. Now you have to understand, I was conceived via sperm donor. Okay? I have over 222,000 connections.
That is incredible.
Yes. Now,
I've never heard that much. I've heard stories, Gayle, but this is incredible.
Now, in my defense, this is how I looked at it. So, the man who raised me, his mother, my Nana, was from a very large family. It was like 9 children in her family. So, my assumption was every time I got an email, they were somehow descendants of those people. And I deleted them. I thought they were like, somehow connected on that side by, yeah. And no. And then I'm realizing I'm looking down at the names of all the people I'm connected to, and I don't recognize a single name. I don't know these people. I don't know any of these people because I'm not genetically related to my father. These are strangers to me.
What did you do at that point, Gayle? Like, I'm having a hard time just.
Yeah, right? It is, for the first few months, it was funny because I'm waiting. So the mobile DNA unit had come to my sister and come to me, but you have to wait for those results. And I'm not going to lie, like, I didn't sleep for 4 or 5 days till I got those results. It was brutal. And I'm like, my mother is admitting to absolutely nothing. She would not admit to anything. She's angry. She's like, I don't know what you're talking about. So then when the results finally came, I knew, my sister at that point knew, and my mother. Now, my sister and I kind of deal with my mother differently. I have a difficult mother. I love my mother. I'm not saying I don't. And I always say, if you have a difficult mother, you understand what I'm talking about. If you have an easy mother, you're never going to understand what I'm talking about. But there's value in both. Because if you have a great relationship with your mom, she's a role model. And if it's the other way, you know what not to do. So there's no bad things.
It's amazing that you said that.
There are no bad things. There's just things. And my sister, basically before she agreed to test, she kind of held my feet to the flame and she goes, you have to promise not to go to mommy with this. And that was hurtful. It was, but I agreed because at that point I had to know. I couldn't live in the purgatory of not knowing. So I agreed and I upheld that. I did not go to my mother. My mother eventually came to me.
Wow.
So it was a few weeks after my mother called me, and it was funny. She called me and she's like, "Hey, how you doing?" I'm like, "Oh no, 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 oh no, there was no chit chat here." So I drove down to her house. It was a very, very difficult conversation. But she admitted that my father had the mumps as a child, which left him with a low sperm count. Not no sperm count, but low. But apparently whatever sperm he had were not viable because she had had several miscarriages. And my sister is older than me, so she does remember my mother having miscarriages. That was true.
Oh.
And she did tell me it was my father, the man who raised me. I know I have to specify which one. The man who raised me, his mother, my Nana, took her to lunch and said, I want to be a grandma, and sent her to a doctor who is doing inseminations.
So,
yeah, so biologically, I am someone else's child.
That is a lot. And I'm already thinking, like, what would take a family to make that decision and not share that with maybe you and your sister?
Well, and I talk about this too. I grew up in a very interesting dynamic because me and the oldest sister were donor conceived, but the middle sister was adopted. And the adoption was very open. And when we always knew that my middle sister was adopted. When she turned 30, she had my niece and went to my mother and said, I have no medical history. I need to know these things. My mother gave her the contact information. She knew the woman's name. My sister found her. They flew to New Jersey, where I'm from Indiana, and we embraced them like family. Like, it was a very different. Now, when I went to my mother, extraordinarily contentious. She was angry. She was angry at the woman who reached out to me on Ancestry. She was angry at me for going on Ancestry. It was a very different conversation.
That is incredible. Because the way that your adopted sister, everything about her seems to me, based on what you told me, that it was handled the right way, the way that it should, the healthiest way possible.
Yes.
And honorable. And everybody embraced that, and it was beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
But not with you and your biological sister.
No, it was no.
And why do you think that was so different?
I don't know if, I sat on this for a long time. I didn't know what to do. Again, your brain can't process the whole thing at once. It kind of processes it in pieces. And I think, I'm not kidding you, for like the first 3-4 months, I do think I was in shock.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I went on TikTok. I made a TikTok. I didn't know how to make a TikTok. I didn't even think TikTok was for me. I thought I was too old to be on TikTok. And my daughters set up my account, my teenage daughters, and I made a TikTok about what had happened. And listen, I know in TikTok world it's not a lot, but 45,000 people saw that video.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's funny because my daughter's like, who's going to watch your TikTok? You know, like, I'm mom. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm like the middle-aged, boring mom in suburbia. Who's going to watch this? I'm like, I don't know. And now I go live a lot on TikTok. That has been a better way for me to tell my story live because I can answer people's questions and it's not as fragmented as creating content. Because when I create content, it's like 2 minutes of me talking, about, a piece of it. And it's so complex that I kind of need more time. So yes, that's been kind of the platform that I've used to tell my story.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Everybody who's watching this show needs to follow you on TikTok. Absolutely. And we're going to give your line at the end. My mind, Gayle, went way back to maybe a little bit about where your family comes from. You have this Jewish inheritance on both sides. Am I right?
Yeah. Well, I say all 3 of my parents were Jewish. Yes.
I love it. That's incredible. What's the odds of that? That's amazing. But
Yes.
such a togetherness that when I study the scriptures that comes to my mind, and maybe thinking about where your mother is coming from and maybe your nana is coming from, was also Jewish.
Yes.
I'm thinking the Hebrew scriptures, everything about the law was to protect and feed into the family and the name and the inheritance. Everything was like that. There is a deep segment of one after another generation, and everybody knows who was whose father, who was whose son. And even when somebody could not conceive, like Hannah or Sarah, they suffered until they finally were able to be blessed and get a child, especially a child at the time. But it is something that is so ingrained and taught and carried on for so many millennia that I'm thinking this is the honorable thing to do. And maybe that's what they were trying to do, is making sure that the family keeps going, because it's just such a strong tradition in the Jewish community. Did I say that right?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. And we are not Orthodox. We were raised very Reformed. And yeah, I mean, my mother was just very kind of matter of fact. She goes, I wanted a family. And she looked at me and said, you are who you are because I did what I did. Yeah. And I think what was hurtful was there was no validation of the fact that finding out as a 53-year-old married mother of 2 teenagers that I would in any way find this upsetting that, I'm another man's child. Like, that is the craziest thing. First of all, I'm not a child. I've been a child in decades, And yeah, I think my mother buried the secret so deep she believed the lie. And now there are so many pieces to this because she claimed my father knew. My father passed away in 2019. I will never know if that was true.
Before you found out.
Yes, he passed. Yeah, so I found out in January of 2025. He passed away in October of 2019. So I don't know if that's true. I don't know if he knew.
Wow.
It's possible he knew. Sometimes, and that's kind of like the rabbit hole you go down. Like, sometimes one question just leads to like 10 more questions.
Yeah.
So you just kind of have to pull yourself out of the rabbit hole.
Yeah.
And yes, there, people come with things, and
Yes. I was going to ask you before you move on to that, because we're leading to something here even larger. In your story keeps unfolding, unfolding, and unfolding, and
Yes, and this is why I tell it on live, because it's so it's
just
so big.
incredible. We haven't even, we just started. How did it make you feel, and how did your mother react at 53 when she told you and confirmed this part of the story? Because she didn't tell you the whole thing. She just told you part of the story. Did she handle that part? Like you said, she did not validate you. And this is something we can't control in other people, right?
No.
We want that. We desire it. We crave it, but we're not necessarily going to get that. How did you deal with that?
Again, my mother is who she is. She's difficult on a good day. And when I found this out, I was, quote, shocked, not surprised. You know, even when I initially reached out to my sister to tell her, I'm like, there are strange people online claiming to be my siblings. Her first response was about my mother. What did she do this time?
Oh,
Again, you know, there was that. I'm not surprised that, you know, I wasn't validated, that she didn't see my side. That's kind of just organically who she is. People are who they are. You know, that saying, when people show you who they are, believe them. It's true. And it is what it is.
so
I'm glad I know.
So acceptance, is you accepting what it is as it is, helped you to kind of maneuver through not being validated and not being given that information early on in life.
I will never, in terms of my mother validating, that's never going to happen. And there are certain pieces of it you just have to make peace with. Because you just make peace and move on.
I love it.
And that's it. And I you know, it's like, yeah, it's shocking, but I don't sit there and live there. And that's kind of why I've chosen to share my story, because it reaches other people going through similar things. And again, I know my story has a lot of different arms and legs, and there's a lot of branches. I know we haven't touched on everything, but there are people who reach out to me who've had DNA surprises, who have, you know, genetic things. And that's why I've chosen to share it publicly in this way, that my parents, you know, that other people can hear my story and take something away.
Gayle, I'm going to dive into the second part of your story here, because this is huge and very important for people to know and to encourage them to follow you. But just before we proceed, I would like to say that this show is brought by Forever Living, which is the aloe vera company that transformed my health. It's also brought by Pirium, the lifestyle transformational company, and my brother's bar that is called Through the Vine in Fort Lauderdale. So if you ever go to Florida, Gayle, please let me know so you can come and see the best place in South Florida.
I love that. Of course I'll come.
Thank you.
I love it.
My next question is, you made many health decisions now, because now you have a family. You're 53 and you have 2 teenager daughters. You made this whole, as a mother would, all of these decisions, health, lifestyle, everything, decisions for your family based on all the information that you had. But now everything changed. So now tell us a little bit about your story, about your health, and how that is coming together with your present family and how that unfolded.
Okay. So shortly after I was born, I went into respiratory distress. Severe respiratory distress. I was blue and retracting, and I needed intubation. I was born in 1972. Intubation tubing was metal, and I was on a ventilator for about 4 days. I could not breathe on my own, required a tracheostomy tube. In the 70s, they used metal tracheostomy tubes. So I had the trach in for 4.5 years. I had issues from the trach being in. It caused something called tracheal malacia. It pressing on the back of the trachea would cause the trachea to collapse. So they had to correct that. They corrected the tracheal issues, and when I was 4.5, they were able to do what's called decannulate me, to remove the trach, But they told my parents that I had vocal cord paralysis. So what that means is your vocal cords come together to vibrate off each other and create sound.
Right.
When you take a breath, you go, they open. When I take a breath, I go, there's like a tiny little crack. Like both of them really don't move. They move enough that they were able to get the trach out. But I knew I had what's called bilateral vocal cord paralysis, meaning both cords didn't move. And they believed it was an injury due to that initial intubation. They thought that when they put the tube down, they hit the nerve and paralyzed the vocal cords. So for 34 years, I believed I had an injury. I had every reason to believe it was an injury. No one else had it. I move on with life. I meet my husband. I get married. I give birth to my oldest daughter. Immediately after I deliver her, she goes in to take her first breath and she is gasping. So they wrapped her in what looked like a towel. The resident had her, turned around, kicked the door open, ran out, brings her to the NICU. My husband looks at me. He goes, "What do you want me to do?" I'm like, "Go with it." My husband comes down an hour later and looks at me and says, "The baby's vocal cords won't open." They had it wrong. The vocal cord paralysis wasn't a result of another problem. The vocal cord paralysis was the problem. I have an extremely rare genetic abnormality that causes vocal cord paralysis. So my daughter had a case, both cords were touching, and when she would go to take a breath, she would suck in and they were coming close. She was literally being suffocated by her own vocal cords. So they wedged an intubation tube. They don't use metal ones anymore. This was 2006. It was a proper plastic one. She was intubated for 2 weeks, and then I had to yell at I didn't know what happened. I didn't know. I had no idea that this could possibly be genetic because nobody else had it.
Right.
And when my daughter was 2 weeks old, I literally yelled at a NICU full of doctors telling them they had to put a trach in. And they're like, "Mrs. Worath, we've never had a parent ask for a trach." I said, "You've never had a parent who's had one." I said, "I don't know what happened here." I said, "This is not an accident." They did not do genetic testing while she was in the NICU because that's not their job. Their job is to get her stable and get her home. So at 2 weeks, they put a trach in. My daughter was fine. Other than the cords, there was nothing wrong. We got her home. When my daughter was 3 months old, we both went for genetic testing. And I have what's called a translocated chromosome that causes vocal cord paralysis. So if you look at a genetic map, there's 23 pairs of chromosomes. And if you look, like they're like the same size, like one might be bent and one might be straight, but they're the same size. On pair number 14, one is straight and the other's a little piece. On pair 5, one is straight, the other is super long. The way the geneticists explained it, so the piece of 14, quote, translocated and stuck to 5. Now, the ENTs don't understand the genetic side, and the geneticists don't understand the ENT side.
That's incredible.
But they hypothesize that where the gene is broken is causing the message to not get from the brainstem to open the vocal cords. So they are paralyzed closed.
Wow.
Now, I have 2 daughters. My older daughter had a very, very, again, she had the trach. It was a long journey. My younger daughter is a genetic match, had a wider airway, had a natural gap between her cords, and did not require a trach. My older daughter, it was incredibly complicated to create an airway for her. It took 5 hospitals, 3 failed surgeries, and I live in New Jersey. It took 25 trips to Cincinnati Children's Hospital to create an airway for her.
Okay. This is now, we're talking about your daughters, not even you suffering or going through it.
It was my daughter.
That's like
Yes.
touching in the most sensitive part and the most sensitive relationship in your life.
Yes.
And after, and this was before you found out what you found out this year.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, we're going back. My daughter now she's going to be 19 in November. So this was 2006.
So I know that there's a lot more detail about this story that I encourage everybody to watch you on TikTok on your
Thank you.
do up to 2 hours TikTok lives because there's so many questions.
I know it gets so I literally get to the point where I'm like, I have to get up and go to the bathroom. Like I can't sit here anymore.
And I love that. Now I want to really emphasize here, you went through a roller coaster for many years in your life and not understanding things and just getting pieces and pieces. And now today we're here, you're 53 years old and you have a better understanding that you ever had. However, you still have many questions. How are you dealing with knowing all of this and not knowing so many other things? So where are you right now, and how can you and your daughters and your family have peace and enjoy and love your life with all of this?
Well, here's the thing. And I say this all the time. There's no bad things that happen. There's just things. This is life, and life hands you whatever it hands you and you deal with it. And there is good in everything.
I love your mindset.
There is I never live in a negative space. Even when my daughter's going through her medical stuff, I would always say, somebody offered me a solution. I never complained. I never complained.
Because it took long.
It took 5.5 years.
Yeah.
And then there were subsequent surgeries after.
Oh.
So it really kind of almost took like 10 years. But someone offered me a solution. Someone offered my daughter a solution. And it's funny, like, that's how I handle everything with my daughters, too. Like, with my daughters, if they, if they're not feeling well, you'll get better. If somebody offers you a solution, you don't complain. And someone offered a solution. It was in Cincinnati. Thank God they were there. And in terms of, listen, I do not have a close relationship with my mother or my sisters. I didn't have a close relationship with them before this happened. This didn't help. That's fine. And then
your husband's side of the family, but you got
my husband's side of the family, there's different issues there. And again, I say sometimes happy families exist on Hallmark cards. It's okay. Like, it is what it is. And it's funny because for a number of years, it's really just been the 4 of us on holidays. And I'm like, I assumed my family would grow when my daughters got married and had their own families. And, one day I'll be a grandma, and one day, I'll have son-in-laws. And I never banked on a third parent. I never thought, but it's been great.
And you got a gift out of all of this too. You shared what is the part that was sweet about getting to know and doing your DNA test? What'd you get?
My sister, who reached out, it's crazy and it's funny. I'm going to have to come back on your show with her. She's coming here. Yes, she will be here. Actually, next week, she's staying with us for a few days. It is awesome. Insane. She looks like a younger version of me. She's a younger version of me. My daughters adore her. My husband loves her. She's coming. I have new cousins that are coming for Rosh Hashanah. I'm hosting new family. And, God closes a door, he opens a window.
Yes.
And that's just it.
I am so happy you said that. And I love your takeaway of life and how you see it and what you have done for your girls. I'm sure they're so proud of you. Oh my gosh, they're so proud of you. As we wrap up this episode, and I'm going to take you on your offer. Okay, Gayle? I'm going to Okay, I would love to meet you. And I'm sure the world would like that too.
Great.
If you, and you said a lot of gems here, but if you have to leave our listeners, okay, people who might have gone through something similar or something completely different in life, but almost as challenging as that, what is one message that you would like to leave them with today?
Life is beautiful no matter what it hands you.
I love it. I love you already. Love it. Love it. Thank
Love you,
so
girl.
much. I am so grateful. So we're gonna keep in tune because we're gonna have an episode. I am gonna make it happen, Gayle.
I love it.
Sister, because there's a lot there to unfold, and you guys are beautiful souls. So thank you for being here. And can you
Thank you.
please tell us how we can find you on TikTok?
Silver Spirals 714 on TikTok, and I go live all the time. So it's usually like 12 o'clock Eastern Standard, but it changes depending on what my family needs. But I go live, so I talk about it, and I do make content. So you do see some of my content.
That's awesome. Can you say the name again? You're taking on TikTok again?
Silver Spirals, SILVERSPIRALS 714. Yeah.
Awesome. I love it. Thank you so much for coming to the show today. It was an amazing opportunity and blessing to have you here. So thank you so much. You keep shining.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
So this show is produced by the I Am Beast Network and Andre the Beast, the Creighton Show. And this is Jessica Javens Talk. I'll see you on next episode.
Baby girl, you are so pretty, 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 pretty. Baby girl, you are so pretty, 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 pretty. Females made you just to string me, string me.